What's going on, guys? Welcome back to another live stream episode of Q&A. Basically, my name's Scott Wilkinson. I'm a body piercer. I've been piercing since 1994. And I'm basically just taking in questions today. We're answering as many as we can in the order that they come with. Behind the camera, who you can't see, is Jared. He's going to be the voice you're hearing, asking all the questions for us. So how's it going, Jared?
I am doing well. How are you, Scott?
I'm very swell. Thanks for asking.
Excellent.
Cool. So we got some questions?
Yes, I'm going to start off with a question while we wait for a couple to come in chat. Hi to everyone who's here already. The first question we have is, what do you think about nose bone jewelry in a nostril? And so that no one's confused, can you explain to us what a nose bone is? We don't mean like a caveman, do we? A bone through the nose?
Some people might think that, but that's not what we're talking about here. Now, a nose bone is for a nostril piercing, the side of the nose. And there's like three main types of studs when you're dealing with nostril piercings. You're going to have a nostril screw where it goes in and has a little twist, a little corkscrew on the inside. There's also the threadless or the push pin style where it's like a libret style on the inside. And then the gem has a little pin with a small bend and it pushes in and so you can take them apart. Now, a nose bone is kind of not a combination, but it's basically a straight pin where there's a bead on one side and the gem on the other. And the theory is you just push and your skin stretches around it, and then you have the jewelry in there where it has a back, and you just kind of pull it out. Now, the issue is every time you pull it out, it's going to hurt, and it's irritating it, creating more scarring, more scar tissue. A lot of times these nose bones aren't fit for a proper size nostril piercing, so sometimes they're too short and the skin closes up around there, so you lose the piercing on the inside. I mean, all in all, most professional shops don't carry nose bones, in my opinion. Most of them are going to carry the threadless jewelry, and a few of us still actually use the nostril screws if they're bent for that person. But nose bones, taking them in and out, they rip and tear, and they're a bad idea. I highly suggest not using this.
All right, we got a question from chat. They want to know if having an industrial, a conch, a doth, and a rook in the same ear would be too much. Apparently, they've got them all except the rook in the past month. Would adding the rook be an issue?
An industrial,
a conch, a doth, and a rook.
Yeah, if you're looking at, that's a lot to heal up, and your ear's already probably pretty swollen. Your body can only take so much and heal things at one time. I mean, if everything's going well, like I tell people, no more than 5, 6 absolute max to heal things up, but cartilage piercings take a long time to heal. You have your industrial, which is probably 6 months to a year minimum. I mean, most of those cartilages are 6 months minimum. So I would say definitely up on your like multivitamins. So the healthier you are, the faster you're going to heal. And if the swelling's not that bad and it's healing up, you might be able to go with it, but I would personally wait. That's quite a bit.
Now, next question from Tali. Can minors get an industrial barbell?
It depends on where you go. Every city has different laws, different regulations. Some cities have no laws or regulations. Yes, you can. Now, the issue with minors getting an industrial, and a lot of cities have certain ages. Here in Las Vegas, where I'm at, we have a minimum of 6 or 14 is the youngest we can pierce here. My shop has a minimum of 16. That's the youngest we'll pierce at my shop. It's our personal preference. The issue is industrial takes a long time to heal. Expect a year. Now, if you're involved with sports and school, activities where you need to take that in and out, it's not going to work for you. Piercings are about timing. Have a good solid year where you can heal this. You're not going to take it out. It's not going to cause problems. If so, go for it. If it's legal, go for it. But have a professional do it.
All right. Akasha Moon asks, how do you stretch ears with tape in a teardrop shape to even out ears? So we're talking about 2 different large stretched ears that are maybe not completely even?
Yes. Okay. So using tape, basically there's 3 main types of tapes. 3 main types of tapes you're going to want to use. The first tape is going to be like electrical tape. Now, electrical tape has a sticky adhesive on the inside, and that wrap can cause allergic reactions. So if you're having allergic reactions to it, you might want to find a different tape. Some people will use bondage tape. Okay. Now, bondage tape is basically the same grade of plastic, and it'll kind of stick to itself. So you can use that. So it's basically electrical tape without the adhesive. But a lot of times you need to cut it to the size of the plug. Now, the last option is going to be Teflon tape, plumber's tape, or I think it's PTFE. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
PTFE is Teflon.
It is. Okay. Anyways, this is that white plumber's tape you put around like the shower threads and things like that. And you can do a couple wraps of those every few days. Now, the thing is if you're doing a couple wraps on there, you don't want to keep adding new wraps over the old ones. Take the old ones off and add some new ones on there. Now, when you're saying a teardrop shape, there's a couple different options. Sorry about that little bump there. You either already have a teardrop shape or you're going to create one by using two smaller plugs like so. So naturally you have a teardrop shape and you're just going to wrap the tape around 2 or 3 wraps every time. Sometimes if you have a regular size plug and a smaller one, you can use the tape to create the teardrop, if that makes any sense to you guys.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Very informative, helping people stretch evenly. Brisa wants to know, how do you know if you're allergic or sensitive to any materials besides titanium? Because they're having nose piercing problems. So how do you tell about a metal sensitivity?
Everyone has a completely different metal sensitivity. Sometimes your skin is going to grow really far away from it because your body's grown away from that metal. So it looks like the piercing hole's getting way bigger. Sometimes you're going to see like a little white ring around the top, like where it's kind of creating scar tissue. Sometimes it just doesn't heal. I've even had people say that we've taken jewelry out and the headache has gone away. Sometimes you'll have a headache that just doesn't go away because that irritant or that allergen is completely stuck into your system. So if it's not working and you're past that healing time, maybe change to titanium. Titanium's a lighter weight metal. You can get the colors on there. There's no chance really of having any allergies or problems to it if it's the right grade of metal. So.
All right. Next question is from Amber Rose. She says, hi, she's from Miami and loves your videos.
Hi, Amber Rose from Miami.
The problem that she is having is she got her nipples pierced on Sunday and the piercer didn't mark it. And she feels like it might be a little deep, like maybe into the areola a little bit.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Depends on how deep you're going to go. With nipple piercings, you generally want to go right at the base of the nipple and the areola. And if you're going further than that, it might cause that tissue to raise up a little bit, which causes the bumps and the excess scarring on the nipple. A lot of times guys have this because we pierce way deeper into the areola and it's going to look like you have almost like 3 nipples. But if it's too deep, I would say take it out and start over. You'll be healed way faster that way, even though it's a couple steps backwards. It's also probably not the look you're looking for. So if it seems past that line where the nipple turns into the areola, I would say possibly take it out and start over. If it's barely into there, it's not that big of a deal, but a lot into there, definitely.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Question from Penny Picklefinger. Howdy, I had snake bites done about 6.5 years ago and took them out 2 years after that, and they've since closed. Can I get them redone in that exact same spot, or is that little bit of scar there going to be a problem?
Go for it. It's totally fine. You can pierce over scar tissue like that and everything should work out really, really well. The only times you're ever piercing through scar tissue and it won't work out is if you had like a nipple piercing and rejected all the way out, eyebrow or navel, and then that scar tissue is weaker than normal, so it's going to come right out. Typically, in my experience, scar tissue or old piercings like that heal faster the second time around. So go for it.
Very cool.
Yes.
Good morning from Nicole.
Good morning.
Our question today from Peter A is that he got a nose piercing a month ago and he thinks he's getting a little bit of a piercing bump. What advice do you have for that?
Be easy on it. Be careful not to catch that towel. Make sure you're not over cleaning it. If you're getting that bump, either the jewelry is going to be too tight, the crusties got in there and you're not cleaning it well enough, or you catch a towel or shirt on it. So just be nice to it and it should start going away. It's not a pimple. Don't pop it. Don't pick at it. Try not to add any other chemicals to it. It should go away on its own. If it's not going away and it's getting worse and worse, talk to your piercer, see if the jewelry needs to be adjusted, or you could possibly put some emu oil on there if it actually starts getting much worse too. So
very good. Yeah. So Goob has a question.
Goob.
And it might need some clarification. Sure. Goob had a frenum for 4 months and stretched one, but it was insanely painful. The guy said it was fine, but I couldn't do the second. I was wondering if you know, should it be that bad or hurt at all when one stretches a frenum?
I am assuming you're talking about a genital piercing, a frenum, which is the skin on the underside of the penis. Because when you say multiple, sometimes that's that latter that we're talking about. Okay. Now, there's other frenums on the body, like under the web, the smiley, the frowning. Webs like these are actually forms of frenums. But the one I think we're talking about is genital, so that's how I'm going to answer that one today. Now, when you have a barbell in there, once you get to a larger size, the weight of it and the size of it naturally stretches. And if you're pulling on the bar a little bit and you can almost see light go through it, you're generally ready for the stretch. Now, if you had like a 14 gauge in there and it was a fairly new piercing and it wasn't ready to stretch, it's going to be a pinch. It kind of sucks. Yeah. But if you pull down on the tissue and you see that little gap in there, it shouldn't be that bad. I've had some before and I've had them stretched up. Mine were never very painful, but they were ready to go too. So maybe patience, more time.
More time. So if it hurts that bad, you're probably stretching early.
But sometimes people pierce at a smaller gauge. Like I personally pierce all frenums at a minimum of a 10 gauge. It's more comfortable because that thinner wire down there, that tissue, it's kind of cheese cutter. It hurts. You feel it. And when you have a larger surface area, it's more comfortable. Plus, when you have the larger area, the weight of it naturally makes it stretch easier than the 14 gauge.
So starting at a 10 is going to accelerate just because of the weight of the jewelry.
Yep.
Very cool. Jada Smith asks, what are the easiest piercings to heal? What would you say like are 3 really easy heals?
We're talking about doing a video on this one here.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're making this video later, but we'll give these guys a sneak peek.
A little sneak peek. 3 easiest piercings to heal, I would say, are probably going to be a tongue frenum, which is underneath the tongue web, under there. Smileys, if you have the right anatomy, which is another frenum. You kind of see the pattern here. And last, I'm going to say, would probably be like an earlobe. There's a lot of blood flow to the area. It's not a lot of tissue, and they do heal up quick. I would say a septum if it's problem-free and you take care of it, but in general, I think earlobes heal a little bit easier. So, smiley, tongue web, and earlobe.
Very good. So those are the ones, if you want a quick, easy heal, those are the ones to go with. Mm-hmm. So a question from Kurt, can a 14-year-old get an eyebrow piercing?
Again, it depends on the city where you live in. Every city has different laws and regulations. So here in Vegas, legally you can, but my shop, minimum 16. So you just got to have proper ID, I think, in most places where there's laws. And that's the issue with the underage stuff is you don't have proper ID. You might have a passport or a military ID, but most kids don't have driver's license or identification cards at that time.
So when the law requires identification, that's the main reason.
Every place I've ever worked, it says you have to have a form of a government issue ID to properly identify yourself to say this person's your legal guardian. So that's the tough part is coming up with that information. So if you have it, passport's the answer. Yeah.
All right. So another question from Brissa. Currently stretching my ears. I'm at a 12 and the ears feel good. I've been massaging it with jojoba oil every day. I know, listen to my body, but is 1 week for sure too soon to stretch to a 10?
If you're stretching, yes. And the reason I say this, it's almost scary to say because it almost puts false hope into people, but some people naturally stretch way faster. I had a girl I used to work with, and I think she was at a 0. Like I pierced her ears at a larger size, like a 0. And like a month later, like she was already like at a 1/2 inch. And I was like yelling at her. I'm like, you cannot be stretching this fast. You're going to mess them up. It's not, she's like, they're falling out. I remember one day I put in like the 7/16 in her ears. And like the next day she's like, Scott, look at this. And she leaned back and the flare fell through her ear. I was like, you have to go bigger. You know,
right? Just to keep the jewelry in.
But at that smaller size like that, a week's too early. So if there's any sort of pain, any sort of resistance, no, don't do it. You're overdoing it. Coming from the person who lost their earlobes from stretching too fast.
Because that's what you were saying is if you try to go fast, you're creating scar tissue that's limiting how big your stretch can be eventually, right?
Yes.
If you take your time, you'll get bigger in the long run.
And I'm going to point this out. This is the most important thing I can say about stretching. If it hurts, it's done wrong for your earlobes. It really shouldn't hurt. It might be a little bit tight, but if it's painful, back off.
Excellent advice. All right, another question. Hi to both of us.
Hello.
I'm a person who has a lot of allergies that come from periods of time. Do you recommend getting a nose piercing? I really, truly want one, but I'm afraid because of the allergies. I would assume that means because allergies probably cause a lot of nose wiping and nose blowing.
Yeah, exactly. I deal with a lot of sinus issues. I'm always blowing my nose, and if I can deal with this, I'm sure you're going to be fine. Now, the only issue is during the healing process, like if you have a cold or you're having the allergies kicking in, don't get pierced at that point in time. Do it when you're healthy, because you're going to need a good solid month, maybe 2 months for everything to be fully healed up. Now, if you get the piercing and you're constantly blowing your nose, touching it, it's going to be a long, rough healing process, and you're probably going to get the bumps. So my advice to you is wait for the right time when the allergies are at the least and you feel healthy enough to heal it up, and that's going to be your best bet.
Excellent.
Yes.
An interesting question from Veda here. Had my rook pierced 3.5 years ago, and it was still swollen after 2 years. So at that point, she decided with the piercer that they were taking it out. So now it's been 1.5 years since then, and it's still swollen compared to the other side. Is it ever gonna go down, or?
It sounds like a buildup of scar tissue, if I had to guess, because if you tried healing that fistula through there and you took the jewelry out and the fistula, so it's almost like it's tenting, like a tent pole holding it, would be my guess. I really don't know. Now, my only suggestion would be a scar tissue remover. Like if you took like Mederma and you were able to massage it in there, you might be able to get rid of that old fistula, which could in essence allow that to go back down.
And just regular massage helps too. Like if they were to just like gently massage with your fingertips.
That's going to be your best bet. Yeah, massaging. I really don't know if it'll go down. I'm not 100% sure on that one.
So basically after 1.5 years though, it's probably like you're saying scar tissue. So trying to break that up and massage it down might be.
Yeah. If you had problems healing it up, could be excessive scar tissue in there, and that's the way it healed up. So yeah, massage, break it up, and that's Mederma or some sort of scar tissue remover might help. Good luck on that one.
Well, Danielle would like to know. Yeah, I thought that was an interesting question. Yeah. It's nice to be able to try to help. Danielle says, "Hey Scott."
Hi Danielle.
Would having a septum heel flipped up cause any problems?
I suggest this to almost all of my clientele. Now, the reason I say this is most people get pierced with a circular barbell, which is the ring with the 2 beads on there. Now, your septum is a mucous membrane, so it's going to constantly keep it lubricated. So anything moving is going to be pulling crusties back and forth. That's movement. Now, there's a lot of piercers who say, well, flipping it up is also movement, but you're doing a little bit of movement to stop a whole lot more movement. So when it's flipped up, it can't move around. So I suggest at night when you go to sleep, flip it up. That gives you hopefully your 8 hours of sleep or whatever you get where it's uninterrupted, and it allows things to heal much nicer. So the more it's up, the better off it is. So
does that include 100%? Like say I'm trying to hide it and I want to wear this up all the time. Is that okay? That's not going to mess anything up?
Totally safe to do. I think it's totally fine. If you're going to be flipping it up it's the whole healing process, maybe get pierced with a retainer right away, where you don't have the beads and you don't have as much metal up inside your nose. That's just looks like a little staple. And basically you just flip it up there and then you just kind of forget about it. I know a lot of shops actually pierce with those right away, and so you can't even wear jewelry until it's all the way healed up, because this eliminates a lot of the movement. So
make a higher percentage piercing then heals better. Very cool. All right. Now, Stephanie has had a nose piercing for 2 months and they feel healed.
Sure.
And then she knows she's supposed to wait till the 4th month or later, but is it possible that we've healed faster and we can change the jewelry even though it's only been 2 months?
If you're talking about changing it to a ring, I wouldn't do it. If you're just talking about changing to a different stud, you're probably okay to do that as long as you're nice about changing your jewelry. There's a couple different situations here. Now, if you have a threadless piece and you just want to change the top, you can go to a piercer. They'll be able to hold on to the inside, take the top off, and put the new one on there without removing jewelry or causing damage. Now, if you want to take it out and start changing it in and out on a regular basis, it's a bad idea. You're probably going to get that bump and cause more irritation. So be careful about that. If you're doing the ring, I say absolute minimum 3 months, closer to the 4 months before you even think about wearing a ring.
Because it's changing the profile of the hole.
Correct. You have a straight piercing. Now you're trying to put that curve in there, and you have all that dense cartilage, which is really tight around the piercing. Once it relaxes, it takes that 3 to 4 months, then you can wear the ring without the bump happening.
Take your time and avoid the trouble.
The dreaded nostril bump. Man, it gets everyone.
I know.
Not everyone, but a lot of us.
A lot of people.
So, yeah.
All right. Gaz says, hi, Scott and Jared. Love your videos.
Hi, yes, thank you.
Gaz is stretching their septum, and they really love that they can flip it up and hide it, like you were talking about earlier. Mm-hmm. At what size would that no longer be possible? Or is that more down to the specific size of Gaz's nose and the piercing's placement and things like that?
It depends on what jewelry you're getting. Now, if you want to wear jewelry, like
I assume a circular bar or a
circular
curved
barbell.
barbell.
No, circular barbell, not the
yes.
curve. But the circular barbell, the thing is the thicker the gauge gets, the less we can bend it to that circular. So sometimes the thicker it gets, the bigger the ring has to get. Okay. And sometimes that bigger ring isn't going to flip up inside your nose. Now, what a lot of people do is once you get to that size is you just buy a glass plug.
Okay.
You know, a single flare plug, you know, where you put the O-ring on one side, you put it in there and you put the little O-ring on there. No one will even see it, and that's going to hold it open. I mean, I was having dinner with a friend of mine way back in the day. I don't know if I've ever told you guys this story. And this is when the silicone plugs came out. And he's like, hey, Scott, can you possibly get me like a 3/4 inch silicone plug? And I was looking at him. I'm like, Sam, your ears are 2.5 inches. For what? Who's this for? He's like, for me. I didn't understand. He's like, my septum. He had a 3/4 inch plug in his septum, and I had no idea he had a septum even pierced.
You just didn't even notice it.
I knew him for
Couldn't
years.
even see it.
And he turned and tilted his head back, and I saw light go through it, and I was blown away. How do you know someone and then know they don't have a 3/4 inch septum?
That's nuts. So it's obviously one of the most hideable piercings.
Obviously, yeah. So, yeah, you can totally go to a plug and something like that afterwards. How about that?
Right.
That was crazy.
What are the odds, right? Hang on, I've lost my place. There we go.
Oh, and by the way, guys, we have a little goal here. We're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers by the first of the year. We are so close. So if you haven't hit that subscribe, make sure to hit it for us and spread the word. I'd really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. So Jetty Media's question. They have a tattoo/piercing shop in their town, and they do the piercings right there by the check-in counter where everyone can see. Mm-hmm. What are your thoughts on that? Obviously, here you've got a private room that you take people into.
Yeah. It's different in every city what the regulations are. I've done it before where I've pierced in front of windows, but I'm not doing nipples and genital piercings and things that are weird. And generally, I give the person the option if that was the case. Like, do you mind if we do it here? So it's like there's other spectators. Because I've pierced inside some of the casinos here in Las Vegas. And, you know, there's windows and people can see the things happening. And it's kind of fun to see. But if the person's not comfortable, I go to a comfortable room. I don't know. It's whatever. If you don't feel comfortable, don't do it.
And do you feel like in general, like say if a place didn't have a dedicated area for piercings and they just kind of brought out a tray and do it at the front counter, does that seem acceptable to you?
I had a station I went to. If it's just sitting on some random thing, no, that's gross because people can bleed. There can be, you know, there's a lot of things that happen. And if you're doing it on the lobby couch, you know, that's, I guess, right. So having a proper area where all the proper tools are ready to go and you don't have to run around searching for things. It's just safer in general if there's a proper place to actually get pierced. That place can be up front, but make sure it's a dedicated place for it.
And you have a great point. You know what I mean? There's a lot of places to choose from, like feel comfortable, feel like it's safe and clean and makes you happy.
It's your body. If you're not comfortable, find a place you are comfortable with. There's other shops. If it means driving a half hour, or 2 hours to another to get a good experience, it's worth it.
Right. You'll wear that piercing forever.
Bad experience. I mean, the reason I'm a piercer is because I got pierced by one of those guys back in the day. At the lobby, I mean, just like standing, shoving things through. It was just a bad situation. I was scared. I was like, if that's what's out there, I can do it better. So get a good experience. It's worth a little bit of drive if you have to.
Seema asks, are internally threaded nipple piercings bad for a nipple?
Internally threaded piercings bad?
Yes.
No, that is the only option I will even use in my shop. No, I use threadless jewelry. Is that what they're asking?
I don't know.
Okay.
It just is there any reason why an internally threaded? Oh, yeah, explain to everyone with a picture what that means, but why it would be bad for a nipple? I can't think of it.
All right. So what we're talking about here is internal and external jewelry. Now, when you're dealing with a barbell post, internal is like that, and external All right. Look, I'm an artist. Externally threaded, a bar means it comes to a point and there's a whole bunch of threads on here, which acts like a file going through the tissue in a new piercing or old piercing. I don't use this style, and it goes inside the ball here, so the threads go into that. This is internally threaded, where the post has a hole drilled into the actual bar itself. Threads come out of the bead and go into the post. This creates a tighter seal. There's no threads to grab a hold of, and these are totally fine. Now, the only other thing I would say is there's a third option where it's basically a threadless piece. It looks identical to this, but the hole is way smaller, like so, and it just has a pin going in. So this is threadless, internally threaded, or externally threaded. Never use externally threaded. Don't like it at all.
And that's because the threads touch your body. And
correct. It's like
that.
Running a file through your jewelry. It just doesn't make sense.
Right.
There's better options. Both of these are high quality pieces of jewelry. It's whatever you like. Now, one of the main reasons people go with the threadless is if you wanted forward facing gems, like if there's a gem on here and it's all sparkly and whatnot, you want that to face forward for a nipple piercing. You don't want to face the body. And if you put it in this way, like when you add the threads, sometimes the gems don't necessarily lock up in the right direction. So you kind of gotta, the threadless works better for gems. If you just want a regular barbell, like there's prong, opals, or gems, a lot of people use the internally threaded. But again, no externally threaded jewelry. We don't like that.
All right.
I hope that answers the question.
It does. And it explains if people didn't understand the different types of jewelry available.
Yep.
Sarah Lancaster says, hi from France.
France. Hello.
Got a doth a week ago. When do you think that Sarah can change to a ring? 4 months' time? All's healing well at the moment.
Congratulations on your new piercing. That's really fun. I'm glad everything's healing well, but maybe 4 months. It's around the beginning of when it can be fully healed up. Now you're going to notice your doth is probably pretty swollen, and it's going to stay swollen most of that healing process. And what I tell people is once that swelling's gone down and they're close to the same size, then you're healed up enough to where you can change it. Make sure all the crusties are gone. Take a picture of both your pierced and non-pierced side, and once they look the same, go and have it changed. It's not an easy thing to change yourself. You might want to go in for the first couple times.
All right. How should one clean their helix piercing? If we just got a new helix piercing, what's the procedure? How do I keep it clean?
All right, let's talk aftercare for a second. This is for all piercings except for oral piercings, things that go inside your mouth. Basically, you're going to want to use a wound wash spray minimum like once a day, sometimes twice a day. I generally tell my people once a day, and that's enough. Now, the key is you're going to spray directly on your piercing. I don't like spraying this into a cup or onto a paper towel or anything like that because it's coming out of that can sterile, and your cup is not sterile. So you're actually making it a little dirtier before you use it. I was talking to the wrong camera. I'm sorry, guys.
Don't worry. That's my fault.
I'm learning. And so you spray directly on there. Once the crusties on your piercing is soft enough, you can use a paper towel to wipe off crusties. Stay away from Q-tips, cotton balls. The cotton fibers can actually wrap around there, get stuck on there. Paper towels or like clean gauze is going to be your best bet. Stay away from peroxide, rubbing alcohol, neosporin, bacitracin. Most medical problems cause problems. If you're not sure about it, read on that bottle. It'll probably say not made for puncture wounds right on there.
Right. So basically, you just got to let it heal. Keep it clean and let your body work.
Keep the crusties off there. If you have a barbell, check to make sure they're nice. The beads are nice and tight. Once a day, just wash your hands before you touch it. Yeah, leave it be. Clean pillowcases.
Now, is it normal for a healing cartilage piercing to sometimes feel hot? Like it doesn't hurt at all, but it feels like hot?
100%. That is your body healing it up. Now, there's a certain line to where if it's constant heat and you have pus coming out of there, it could be an infection. But as soon as a wound happens, your body starts that healing process and people notice the heat right away. That's all those white blood cells starting the healing process. It's a fast thing and it's a good thing.
So that
means
hot
your body's working.
Is good. Excellent.
Yes.
Camilla asks, first says, hi, Scott and Jared.
Hi, Camilla.
So I got a bump in my 1-year-old second lobe, and when I took the jewelry out, the bump went down in size and seemed okay. But now we have a little bit of discolored scar tissue left. The question is, could I re-pierce it in that same spot? And maybe a little bit over the scar tissue, or would that not heal as nicely because it was there?
Okay. If you were to repeat, are they saying the piercing is completely closed?
Yes.
Okay, good. Yes, you can get it re-pierced. I would suggest using a scar tissue remover first on that piercing. Don't get it. It was the second hole, wasn't it?
Yeah, second lobe.
So you don't want to get the scar tissue remover in the first piercing hole, but you get right next to it, and that'll help break down the scarring and also get rid of some of that discoloration. If you pierce again in the same spot or close to it, that discoloration won't go away. Generally, you need to get rid of that before you get it re-pierced. But yeah, you can go right next to it. As long as you get that color out of there and you break down the scar tissue and it's completely closed, you can go right next to it and put it in the right spot.
What would you say are some red and green flags to look for when going to a new piercer? We know you generally say to check Yelp reviews, but Nicole is wanting to get a few new body piercings, and the reviews for the piercings in her area are really mixed, and she's just not sure how to pick the right one. What are things to look for that would be lean you towards a piercer, and what are some things that you would see that would make you not choose someone?
Okay. You're right. Yelp, Google reviews, all these things can be skewed and altered, so you don't really truly know. Look at the bulk picture of them, and you're going to get a good idea. Now, the best advice I can do is, like, if you're out in public and you see someone with a lot of cool piercings and they look good, ask them where they got pierced.
That's smart. So if you see someone who's obviously
I can
successful,
guarantee you they're a dedicated, they have a piercer they go to, like, hey, this is the only person I go to, and you're going to get a good, solid answer. So find someone with a lot of good-looking piercings, not a bunch of safety pins and stuff in their eyebrows. That's a bad idea. Like, oh, my friend, right, like in my apartment, he can totally hook you up. It's just $3.
Right.
Yeah.
So look for well-done stuff and
Yeah.
ask them, get a recommendation.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Now, here's the other thing. It's customer service. It's a personal experience you need to be comfortable with. Go in there and look around. Don't say, hey, I'm just looking around. Do you have portfolios? Do you have, I just want to look at your jewelry. I want to get the general vibe of the shop. I'm just jewelry shopping. And, like, hey, if I were to get this done, what do you start off with? And just ask them some questions. They should be friendly. They should be able to talk to you. And if you don't feel that right vibe, it's not the right place. So
trust your gut.
Good luck to you. It's a scary world jumping out there. There's a lot of just really mean people. So find a nice person.
So Joanna asks, what do you think about those YouTube famous piercing studios that pierce, for example, a doth or a nose with a hoop? Lulu's, I'm looking at you.
I'm not a fan. I mean, anyone who pierces with a hoop, it's going to cause problems. I've done it before in the past. I'm guilty, but I stopped doing it because I was just giving in to what the customer wanted. I want a hoop no matter what I'm getting. Well, if I'm not doing it, they'll go elsewhere. I've just given up on it because it's not going to heal properly and it makes us look like the bad guy. Straight up. So that's why I'm like, no, you're getting the stud, heal it with this, then change. Once they leave the shop, it's up to them, whatever they do, but I'm making sure I'm giving them the right experience. Some people, some YouTubers just are going for numbers. Right. It's just going for numbers. And I never had that intention. Granted, I just said, hey, we're hoping to get 50K because we're right around the corner and that's super exciting. But I started this because I didn't see good sources of information and I wanted to share my information with you. That's why I do this. So I hope I never get to that level of just being greedy.
Kalista asks, how can I re-pierce my second lobe piercing if it's a little bit closed up, but not all the way?
How can you, if you soak your ear in some warm to hot water for a good 5-10 minutes, or even in the shower, find the thinnest earring you have, and then sometimes you're able to reopen things up. Don't re-pierce yourself. If it doesn't go, it doesn't go, but just go nice and slow push, and if you can get it, you can get it. If not, you might have to go to a piercer and have it actually re-pierced. Is that what you're asking?
I believe so. Yeah, I think they're just still in between. It hasn't quite healed up. And so you're saying let it heal completely up or see if a piercer can chase it with a taper.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fully healed piercing?
Yeah, they're saying it's a little bit closed up, but not all the way.
Yeah, sometimes piercings will close a little bit on the inside and they can't get it through. And it's like you can see it both directions and it doesn't make sense. How is that middle? That's what I'm saying. Soaking the warm opens things up. It softens tissue and you might be able to get it through, but don't hurt yourself.
Are hip piercings still a bad idea, or have there been any scientific advances in the area of hip piercing?
I don't know any scientists who are working. I wish there was.
That's the problem.
So
we need more
a crew
scientists.
piercing scientists. Who...
So, still not a good idea.
No, it's so rough, especially now. I'm not a fashion guy, but I can tell you that the higher waisted pants are still pretty popular, and it's not going to allow your piercings to heal up at all until low rise pants comes in, maybe surface bars. But even when I did these, they don't heal. I think the longest I had was maybe 2 years, and that was with Tygon coming in every couple of months. We're changing things out. They never looked great. They're always a little red, but 2 years was a good run. So not a good idea. Unfortunately.
Nicole wants to know if I'm looking to get any more piercings, and can we get a little wave on camera?
Yes, he is.
Listen to this guy. Yeah, we'll probably do that on camera. Also, we're doing some needle testing coming up, so that'll be an interesting couple.
Yeah,
of
I'm gonna be shoving a bunch of needles through Jared
for science.
For science, scientist.
Yeah. See, you were just saying we need more science.
We're gonna be testing a bunch of needles, just all the different brands and what he feels and what his opinion is of them, and we're working on getting, like, right now we're in the piercing room. It's like 100 square feet in here, so it may seem a lot bigger. Sorry to not paint, ruin. Yeah, it's a little bit bigger.
Wave
See him
on
over
camera.
here?
See me
Here,
over
he's
here?
waving. He's waving.
Ooh, thumbs up. All right. Sure. Yeah, we're just teasing you guys, but yeah, we'll get the camera situation figured out soon, and we'll be able to be both on film soon.
His pictures on Instagram.
Oh, that's true. If you go check out our Piercing with Scott Instagram, there's a couple behind the scenes shots. You can get what.
And here's another fun thing about Jared. I've been threatening on piercing his septum on camera, so hopefully we can get. I'm calling you out right here, right now.
I don't care. I'm down.
We're doing it. Cool. Thank you.
All right. So let's see. Next question is. Archie says he has 57 piercings at the age of 15. I'm just not sure it sounds true.
I could believe it.
You think?
I could believe it, yes.
There's states that allow that?
It doesn't mean he got them all
the right way. Okay.
In a shop and whatnot. Sometimes people just go crazy. I mean, you can fit a lot of ear piercings. I'm kind of curious, like, can you list, was it Archie?
Yes.
Yeah, Archie, let us know where they all are. Are they all in your ears? Do you have a couple nostril, oral piercings? It's just...
an interesting question. Clarify for us, Archie. Piercings. Let us know what we're looking at.
I was at a tattoo convention a while ago, and I think I had 30-some piercings at the time. And I actually lost out to a girl who only had her ear and her cartilage up, but they were filled. Like, she had 50-some, and it was just up,
just her ears,
just her earlobes. And people said, the bridge, the nostrils, the stretch, the lips, and it's like. And she won.
She still won?
That was weird, but she did. She had more piercings.
Did they count and verify your numbers, or did they just take your word for everything below the belt?
They just took my word.
You see? You just... honesty right there.
I have 300 piercings.
Yes, they're all you don't want to see.
Yeah. No, I don't.
Sarah would like to know if she can get a rook and a conch in the same ear in the same sitting, or do you think there'd be too much swelling?
No, you should be fine. There's going to be swelling, and that comes with the territory, and we'll make sure we give enough room for that swelling. Now, you said a rook and a conch, you're going to be probably getting curved barbell in your rook. Don't start off with a ring. It's going to be a rough heel, and it's a normal stud. And make sure you don't have a large cluster that might be rubbing up or getting close to the rook. As long as there's some separation there, you're totally fine.
Teresa says hello. And
hi, Teresa.
Is having some trouble. She got her eyebrow pierced 2 months ago, loves it. Her manager doesn't love it, and her manager wants her to take it out. She refuses to do so. Is there a way that she can try to hide an eyebrow piercing, or maybe put a Band-Aid on it? Like, what can we do to try to still have it, but still have a good job?
Band-Aids don't really work. They're really obvious, and they're going to be falling off. Now, the only things I can really say is sometimes you can use retainers. Like, there's glass retainers. I've seen little metal retainers that look like a little hook, and you might be able to anodize that and get that closer to root color and might be able to hide it. But taking eyebrow piercings in and out is going to cause irritation. The best option I'm going to give you is with nail polish. Okay. If you get a curved barbell for your eyebrow maybe one with gems where they're a little bit flatter and the small as possible, and paint the outside part of the bead, not the part that touches the skin, because if that gets inside your piercing, that can cause irritation. But you can actually get rid of some of that shine. Get as close as you can to that skin tone, and that's going to be probably your best bet, where you don't have to take it in and out all the time.
So try to find a nail polish that matches your skin color on your forehead there, and just
maybe a flat color, not a shiny or gloss. You don't want things reflecting, and that's the problem. So if you're wearing acrylic or retainers all the time, it's going to probably reject out, and it doesn't work. You need to find something for long term where you can maybe wear it throughout the week, and your weekend you can put some flashier stuff in there.
Fidel says that his piercer woman told him that 6 months after a piercing, the septum, that hole becomes permanent. Is that true?
No. It can. Every person's different. Sometimes I've seen people who've had the piercing for a year, and 10 years later, it slides right back in. I've also seen people have the piercing for 10 years and hey, I can't get my jewelry back in. I took it out earlier. It's gone. I don't know why. I don't know. It's just generally septums stay open good as long as they're not too irritated. I'm guessing it's more irritation that causes them to close, but there's no guarantee. Any piercing can close up.
Isabel wants to be a body piercer and has looked into apprenticeships but can't find one. Is there any other way to get started, or any advice on maybe finding the apprenticeship?
There are certain forums I think is it the APP non-member forum, where people start posting apprenticeship board, where people are looking for apprentices looking for piercers to teach them. Sometimes you might have to travel. But as far as educating yourself, you can take anatomy classes. There's piercing seminars you can take, which aren't apprenticeships, but they get you on the right path. It's tough. I mean, if you live in a smaller town where there's not a piercer to teach you, there's not much you can really do, because you need an apprenticeship. So you might have to relocate if there's no one in that area.
Sometimes if you have a dream, you got to chase that somewhere else.
You do.
Penny says, much love from Kansas, and thank you. Your advice about healing a third lobe earlier really helped.
Wonderful. Glad I could help, and thanks for watching.
Lil Snorlax wants to know, how can we know when a surface antitragus is rejecting? And can you suggest a unique face piercing that not everyone has?
A surface antitragus? Is that what?
That's what it says.
I'm wondering if you're talking about the sideburn in the front here, because this is the antitragus here, and that would almost be like a surface lobe. I'm guessing it's just terminology. I'm guessing it's the front here. So that confused me. And great name, by the way.
How can you tell if it's rejecting? So it'd be pretty much the same advice in either spot. How can we tell if a surface piercing is working its way out?
Okay. When you first got it, the beads or the discs should be fairly flat to the face. There shouldn't be much sticking out at all. If there's a whole bunch sticking out now, it's not it's probably rejecting. Also, you generally, with a surface bar, you're gonna have that right angle. I better draw this again here. Let's change this up. Bye-bye externally threaded jewelry. And internally and threadless. All right. So surface bars. I'm using beads. Normally I use discs, but this is the surface bar, and typically your skin is running like this. And like I said, these are discs, so they'll sit flat against the skin. Now, if you notice, this part is sticking way further out, or you can see this little L part. I'm turned sideways.
The corner there?
We can see the corner. If that part starts sticking out, it's rejecting out, and that's going to be a sign. So basically, these need to be sitting flat, flush against the skin. I should have did the discs right away. But that's the easiest way to tell. Sometimes you're going to notice the skin in the middle here is going to be getting irritated, and sometimes you'll see the bar coming through in the middle and work its way out. So if you notice that skin is thin in the middle, definitely take it out too. So if they're rejecting, there's generally not a whole lot of saving. They need to just be removed.
Just remove. So keep an eye. It'll seem like the bar's getting larger, right?
Yeah, it seems like the bar's getting longer or sticking out much further. If you're not sure, start taking pictures. If you take a picture of it every week, you'll start seeing that difference. But if you let it reject all the way out, you're going to have a huge scar. So don't let it happen.
How would you stretch your ears if your ears react badly to the taping method?
Try different tape. I don't know if you've used the right tape, and it also depends on what size you're starting at. The tape method does not work at real small sizes like 16, 14, or 12 gauge. It's the larger ones. Once you get to 8, 6, then you can start getting the wrap on there. Like I said, some people have allergic reactions to some of them, but that plumber's tape, I haven't seen too many people have reactions. The only other reason why you would have a reaction to this is if you were putting tape over old tape and you're trapping bacteria and stuff underneath it. So you need to keep it clean. So new tape every few days.
Seth got their ears pierced around 7 weeks ago, and the left ear was doing good. And then one morning they woke up and it was bleeding. Since then, it's been feeling tender and bloody. Is it infected?
Probably not. I'm sorry, I'm stuck on that last question here. We're going to go back just for 1 second.
Okay.
Sorry to confuse you guys. You're also saying how other can you stretch it? With time, it's going to naturally stretch. Or if you're at like an 8 gauge, you can always put a smaller like 18 gauge ring or other stud underneath, and that kind of creates a little extra room and might be able to get you to that next size. That answers your question better. Sorry, I didn't mean to kind of jump around.
No, I mean, you're
like,
giving the best info you can.
Yeah,
Sometimes you got to jump around.
So let's reword this question.
Okay, so we got new ear piercings 7 weeks ago. Things were doing well, and then one morning we wake up and our left ear is bleeding, and it's been tender and sore and bloody since then.
Okay.
Is it infected?
Probably. I mean, probably not. A lot of times when you get pierced, if you pull crusties inside, it's just going to scratch your ear, and that's what's going to cause that swelling and bleeding to happen. So continue cleaning with a wound wash spray. Hopefully you're not using anything else. Hopefully you're not spinning and rotating or putting anything on there. And just kind of watch it. You just got to be careful with it. A lot of people overdo things and just keep those crusties off there and make sure it's quality jewelry. You
try not to beat it up.
If you have thick pus coming out of there, you're radiating a lot of heat and there's a lot of redness, then there might be signs of an infection. So if that's the case, then you might want to go talk to a doctor or something like that. But generally, it's not infected. They're just really upset.
What jewelry do you suggest for a new doth piercing if we're trying to avoid bumps and scarring?
The right size titanium captive bead ring or circular barbell. I don't ever suggest using curved barbells in these just because the way it flaps and like the angle of the piercing is going to change. They cause a lot of bumps with a curved barbell. So only get pierced with a ring, circular barbell, or a captive bead ring. I generally do a minimum of 3/8 of an inch for metric. I'm not sure what 3/8 of an inch would convert to. It's 9 millimeters or 10 millimeters, something like that. That'd be the minimum diameter I would use on a doth piercing.
So it's about the correct size of ring, you would say.
Yes.
Excellent. Brianna got lobes done when she was a baby with a gun, and they're uneven. Is there any way that she can get another lobe without them looking so uneven? She tried a second lobe, but it looked so bad she took it out.
It really depends on placement. All I can really say here is like maybe take some markers or whatever and start playing on your ears, seeing if you can add new piercings, stacked lobe piercings in different shapes to kind of make them look more symmetrical. It depends on how far off they are. I've seen a lot of kids when they're getting pierced, when they're pierced as kids, the earlobe piercings are really, really high up, almost into that antitragus cartilage area. And that makes it tough. Then you can put stuff lower to make it look like a stacked lobe. But sometimes they're just off enough where there's not much you can do other than
just trying to style it, just asymmetrical styling, and do them different.
And figure out the style of jewelry that works best for you, whether it's going to a bunch of rings or the studs. If the angles are off, rings are going to show that. Then you might want to stick to studs. If it's just spacing, maybe we can start putting some rings in there and do closer together piercings to kind of compensate and make it happen. Now, here's the other thing. I don't think anyone has ever said, hey, Jared, both your earlobe piercings are crooked. Nobody knows but us. You know, we look in the mirror and go, oh, it's off a little bit. It's a half a centimeter, this and this. No one's ever said anything. It's just your piercer and you. So don't worry about it.
No one even notices.
They really don't. No one ever says anything.
So greetings from Austria. Huber here has heard that there is a possibility of getting a septum perforation when you get a septum piercing. How likely is this?
Perforation?
Yeah, like a hole in your septum, I suppose, other than the one you're intentionally putting there.
Yeah, that's what I'm.
I guess isn't a septum piercing a septum perforation, right?
Really, yeah, perforation is a type of piercing. I'm not 100% sure what exactly you're asking, but generally it should be totally fine. If you had an allergy, your body might be reacting and could
But for the most part, septum piercings are safe. There's nothing in there that you've heard.
I've never had any issues or heard anything like that in
people getting like nose issues or collapsing cartilage or anything. You've ever heard of that?
I've never seen it.
Excellent. Doesn't mean it's impossible.
I've heard rumors, but back in the day, they used to say, if you pierce the upper part of your cartilage up here, it can paralyze half your face. And this was a thing that was going around all over. And everyone seemed to have a friend of a friend who this happened to, but I never met anyone directly.
So some
of those things kind of float out there, yeah.
They just misinformation about piercing.
And if that was really a thing, we wouldn't be able to legally do this.
Yeah, the lawyers would be involved.
Yeah, there would be.
Can you close a tunnel piercing, like maybe a small one? I'd like to experiment with it, but I want to know I can close it back up again if I get tired of it.
So if you're stretching your earlobes, if you were pierced at a normal size, like an 18, maybe your 16 gauge, and you stretched up, I tell people that 0, sometimes 00 is the point of no return where you'll be able to shrink it up and go back to normal. That's if you stretch properly, you don't rip or tear, and you're patient about it. Now, a normal earlobe piercing up to a 0 gauge, probably going to take you about a year minimum if you're doing it properly. So yes, you can do that. But the thing is, and anyone who has stretched earlobes knows this, as soon as you start stretching, the addiction begins, and it's always just one size more. And next thing you know, you can fit a soda can in your ear.
Take your time.
You've been warned, but yeah, take your time.
Marie says, hey, I got a rook done in July. It started to embed in August, so swelling, and so she changed to a ring.
Okay.
All is okay, so she changed to the bar, but it started to happen again. Does this mean the bar is too short, or does that occur a lot?
It could be the bar's too short. It's a rook piercing. If your piercing is at as much of an angle where it comes out, okay, going to the ears here. So when you're looking at this ear, you see how there's this natural ridge. This is the rook. Now, if your rook piercing comes out right where the conch and the rook meet here, there's no room for that bead to be in place. The rook generally comes out a little higher up, so it can actually float in there instead of actually being pressed against there.
Crammed into the corner.
So it could be the placement of the rook. It could be your jewelry's too short. Or if it's the same jewelry you had before, it could be a metal allergy or an irritation from a scratch or ding inside the jewelry. So the right type of jewelry and the right placement is everything. I hope that answers it for you.
Absolutely.
Sweet.
I got my Medusa re-pierced a second time a couple of months ago, and at first it seemed fine, but then after a few weeks, there's a flabby white circle piece of my underlip covering the disc, and it's painful. So we're growing over the back of the jewelry, right?
Yeah, a little tiny bit.
Why is that? What's the procedure now?
Sometimes when you get oral piercings, your disc is going to go into your lip a little tiny bit. And a lot of times we want this to happen to pull it away from your teeth and your gums. Now, it shouldn't be to the point where it's going in too far or creating excessive scarring, which is probably what's happening here. So you might want to go back to a slightly longer post. If you haven't already downsized. I'm assuming if it's 2 months, you might have downsized already to the shorter post. So check on your jewelry. Maybe if you have a real small disc in there, you might want to go to a larger disc. You might want to go to a longer post and put one of the no-pull discs on the inside. That might help get rid of that bump. But if it's painful, find some different jewelry that's not as painful. Go talk to your piercer on that one.
A 5-month-old septum piercing. Does it mean anything if that starts hurting? Should it stop hurting by then, or?
It should be fully healed up. Shouldn't have any pain. Sometimes if you have piercings start acting up out of nowhere, sometimes you're getting sick. I've noticed like cold, flu, sometimes my piercings will start getting red and weird out of nowhere, and I'll just take multivitamins and it generally kicks it real quick. So my cold doesn't last as long. But also maybe the multivitamins might also help heal up whatever the issue is that's flaring up.
Right. Just help your body do its own job, right?
Yeah.
All right. Saku got a nostril piercing bump that's not going away, even when using a titanium labret and daily saltwater soaks from the pharmacy. What to do? This has been 3 months.
daily saltwater soaks from the pharmacy.
They might mean the saline spray.
Okay, I hope you're using the saline spray. If you're doing the sea salt soaks, it has to be measured exactly properly, otherwise it causes problems. So you have to. It's equivalent to like a quarter teaspoon of sea salt per 8 ounces of water, but it's real tough to do it properly. So just get the wound wash spray. Sometimes if you catch a nose piercing on a towel or a shirt, sleep on it wrong, the littlest irritation causes bumps to happen for a while. You might be doing super good, and then 3-4 weeks later you do it again, and that's enough to cause it to come back. So patience is the key. You might want to look at one of those no-pull discs if it's constantly getting hit or bumped. Maybe talk to your piercer, see if the jewelry is causing the problem. Too loose, too tight a jewelry can cause that issue as well.
Timothy wants to know if there's a good place online to get jewelry because he doesn't trust the cheap stuff on Amazon.
I don't trust the cheap stuff on Amazon either.
We are currently working on a website where you guys will be able to purchase jewelry.
Hopefully so.
It's a lot of work to make a commerce website, but we're doing it.
Yeah, we are. So patience, and we'll be able to get you the right jewelry in time. I agree. There's thousands and thousands of different jewelry websites out there, it seems like, and most of it's garbage. It's just like random people like
mystery
metals. Yeah, people are like, oh, it's surgical steel, and like surgical steel is kind of a blanket term for a high quality metal, but then it's painted.
Right.
Like
so what's in the
steel,
paint?
you can't make green or hot pink, and it's like, so yeah, there's a lot of really questionable stuff out there, and until then, just go to a piercer and
buy it from a shop. But yeah, the same as everything else. When Scott notices that there's no reliable sources that can be trusted, we go about trying to create that source ourselves.
Yeah. It's frustrating trying to find someone you trust. So yeah, we're working on it for you. Be patient.
Jared Brummett just got a bridge piercing about an hour and a half ago.
Congratulations.
Give aftercare instructions.
I did it a little bit earlier, but basically you want to use a wound wash spray on your bridge. Bridge is the one I have right here. Now the bar you're going to have in there is going to be long. And another thing I'll let you know if your piercer didn't is you're probably going to heal it and it's going to look real crooked for maybe a week to 2 weeks. It goes back down once to normal just so you don't panic. But a wound wash spray is all you want to use. Sterile saline solution that's in a can, quick squirt on both sides, clean off crusties with a clean piece of gauze or a paper towel, and don't mess with it. Try to baby it, clean pillowcases, and everything should work out well for you. Once the swelling's gone down and it seems comfortable, maybe a month, 2 months minimum, then you should downsize to a shorter post. But still leave a little tiny bit in there because it does fluctuate in swelling, even as the years go on. I don't know if you guys can tell, but I still have just a smidgen, just a little bit of bar. I've gone that little bit shorter, and it immediately acts up. So a little bit of bar is a good thing.
All right. How long does a dermal piercing usually bleed for?
A couple hours max, generally. I mean, I've seen them last up to a day before, just a little bit, but apply Band-Aid, apply pressure to it. Depends on how they did it, because there's two main methods for doing dermal anchors. One is with a piercing needle, and the other is with a biopsy punch. Biopsy punch is like a razor blade in the shape of a circle. Just punch, remove the tissue, so there's going to be no pressure on there, hence the bleeding, which would bleed longer. I did mine with needles when I did mine, where you do the piercing, crescent incision, and pushes tissue off, so there's pressure on there and stops the bleeding. But I also put Band-Aids on there and tell people leave it on there for a good 12 hours if you can.
Just to leave it alone.
Anchor it on there as much as you can. So depends on how it's done. Nothing to probably worry about unless it's excessive. Then apply pressure for a good 10 minutes, and that should stop the bleeding.
Is snake bites, a labret, and a septum too much to get at one sitting?
No, I think you should be fine. You're going to have a fat, swollen bottom lip, but yeah, you should be fine. Snake bites, the two sides and the one center. So you'll have, just keep the swelling down. Ibuprofen, Aleve, Advil, cold things for the next several days, and you should be totally fine. And the septum should be a fairly easy one compared to the lips with that swollen lip.
Veda wants a stretched septum so that we can eventually do the septrill.
Yeah.
What size do we need to stretch to?
You'd have to talk to your piercer, depending on what supplies they use. But for me, I tell people a minimum of a 2 gauge. No, I said 4 gauge. 4 gauge is the receiving tube that I use because it has to go in, and then it's a 90-degree hole in the side of the receiving tube so I can pierce straight into it. But the 4 gauge is the smallest that I was able to fit in there.
So somewhere around a 4 gauge, it'll kind of depend on exactly what receiving.
The bigger
tube
it is, the little easier it's going to be for us. But talk to your piercer and see what they suggest or what they say. Super fun.
Delaney had a piercing bump on the inside of their medusa, and it turned black and fell off and feels fine now. Have you seen that before?
It turned black. Yeah, it's just the tissue kind of went necrotic and died and fell off. I've seen flaps on the ears where they've done that before. It's not real common, but it can happen. As long as it's not spreading that black, that's bad. That's necrotic tissue. So
black is usually bad, but since it fell off and seems okay now.
And it stopped, you're fine. But yeah, if it keeps continuing, it's not going away. See a doctor right away. That's no good.
Now, Allison went to their piercer and they stretched their ears from a 0 millimeter to a 4 millimeter. And he insisted that it was all right. Just asking if I should be worried. They haven't blown out, but do you think I should slow down from now on?
They stretched or pierced?
I'm not. Well, we say stretched my ears from a 0 millimeter to a 4 millimeter.
0's nothing, though.
Yeah, 0 means no millimeters at all. Maybe they mean from
a normal piercing,
like a 22 gauge or whatever a mall piercing gun is.
Yeah, I think that's wrong. There was some ripping and tearing that happened.
That was too fast.
That's too fast.
So slow.
The only way you can go big like that right away is from an initial piercing when you can jump sizes. Generally, I never suggest jumping sizes. Proper stretching of that, it shouldn't hurt. So yeah, hopefully it didn't rip or tear. Hopefully it's not too bad. That it's done though. It's heal it up, but if it's causing problems, take it out. But you still might be able to heal it up, but it's not suggested.
Is it okay to keep a retainer in during the majority of the healing process? My school doesn't allow facial piercings, and I'm afraid that the plastic could be an irritant.
It is going to be an irritant, and I don't suggest that at all. The only type of retainer that you could possibly use would be a glass one or the metal retainer. Like if you got a septum, you can get one of those metal retainers and flip that up. But as far as like if you want an eyebrow or a lip piercing, it's not going to work. You're going to lose the O-rings. The plastic's not safe to really pierce with. Even the BioFlex, who people swear by, it's plastic. It's not really designed to go in the body. I've seen more problems that actually come out of it. So again, it's timing. Find the right time when you can get away with it.
So Ella Equestrian wants to know, how long after getting a first mid-helix would it be okay to get a second near it?
Once the swelling's gone down and you can pierce it accurately to get the right angle.
Because what would happen if it was still swollen and we pierced that second hole?
Well, if you did 2 piercings, like if one's this direction and they look perfect like this, but they're really swollen, swelling goes down, it might heal like this. So one gem points that direction, one's this way. You might want to wear rings in there. And now they're sitting at different angles and they're not going to be nice and symmetrically stacked.
So there's no way to get them perfect unless you wait till that swelling's gone.
That's my opinion. Yeah, I make sure it has to be fully healed or do them all in that same sitting.
So just keep an eye on your ear, and when it seems that the swelling is completely gone, you're okay.
Mid-helix right in here, that area stays swollen for a while. So just be patient.
All right. Marie says hi from Sweden.
Hi, Marie from Sweden.
This might be a strange question, but do women often lose genital piercings when giving birth? I'm thinking that since it could stretch and tear down there, and if so, can they get it redone?
Yeah, you can totally get it redone. If you have a genital, I'm not sure which genital piercing you're talking about. Most women have the VCH, which is the vertical clitoral hood. And a lot of times, if you've had it for years, that piercing hole will stay open as long as it's not irritated. Now, if during birth and whatnot, everything's stretching, yeah, it's going to get irritated and it might need to come out, and therefore you're going to lose your piercing. But if it starts stretching, take it out early, a lot of times they go right back in, or you can always get it re-pierced.
Is the medical team going to have you remove all those piercings before birth anyhow?
Most of the time, I think they do. I'm not 100% sure on midwives and things like that. I know that whenever they're using any sort of anesthetics, things like that, do they ever use defibrillators on pregnant women? I doubt.
I mean, you wouldn't plan on it, but you'd be wanting to.
After the birth, if you needed to, see anywhere there's metal that can kind of arc the electricity and not go to where it needs to go. It can also
So that's why in an operation they're removing them, is in case they need to emergency shock you or something.
Correct. Like, yeah, you're working down here. Why do you need my eyebrow piercing out? Like if they had to use the defibrillator electricity, it changes things and can burn holes. So.
Okay. So
supposedly, I'm not 100% sold on it, but
so generally they would be removed before a woman gave birth, but you think for the most part you could re-pierce them afterwards.
Correct.
Excellent.
And I don't know if you've given birth and you've been able to keep your piercings. Let me know in the comments. I'm not 100% sure on that one. So,
and what is your thoughts on a double rook piercing? Just aesthetically, you like that?
I love double piercings if you can definitely pull it off, because the stack, like the gem options, double rook here, super, super cool. Just don't see enough of them.
Lewis wants to know how long it takes for the healing of a cartilage ear piercing, because over at Claire's they're saying 3 weeks.
Do you trust Claire's?
None of us do, Scott.
No, it takes way longer. I've talked to surgeons and doctors, and it takes a minimum of probably like 4 to 6 months for cartilage to fully heal. You need the blood flow in the area. An earlobe heals fast because there's blood flow and you get the white blood cells. Cartilage does not heal that fast up there. Legally, I don't think they're supposed to be piercing with guns in the cartilage. The gun was only designed for the outer perimeter of the earlobe in all the laws that I've seen. I can't vouch for every state, but I believe that is the case.
And it looks like Lewis is wanting to switch it to a ring, so at least that long of a wait, correct?
Yeah, there's no way your piercing can be healed up. A minimum 4 to 6 months, and as long as the swelling's gone down and feels good, then you can change it. 4 to 6 months doesn't mean you can change at 4 to 6. Change it when it's healed. It might take all the way up to a year, unfortunately. That's cartilage.
Do you prefer a hoop or a curved barbell in a rook?
I prefer a curved barbell. Curved barbell is always going to heal much, much nicer because the ring can't spin and rotate. So, yeah, get pierced with a curved barbell.
All right. Pamela is a Montreal piercer and loves your work and your professionalism and what you provide to the community.
Thank you very much. I'm so glad other piercers are tuning in here too. That's really, really awesome. Montreal, huh? Well, if you're ever in Vegas, make sure you stop into my shop and say hi.
And from earlier, Seema, when we were talking about internal versus external, that was a mistype. They meant the other way. So your explanation still covered it. So.
Nailed it. Cool.
All right. So Maria recently got my nip pierced and it's slightly crooked and I'm not sure. Should I get it re-pierced or just embrace it?
It's up to you. If it's going to bother you, re-pierce it. It depends on if you just got it redone and it's bothering you, take it out now. You get it re-pierced in maybe a month or so, let all it heal up and everything should work out much, much better. Take note how crooked it is. Like if you said nip 1?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if it seems like it's a little bit off to the side, just say, hey, the inside was a little bit low. We'll be able to see the scar tissue. We'll just raise it up and it should be in the right spot. Now, the thing is when you're piercing nipples, a lot of them get pierced crooked because when you mark the nipple needs to be erect. It actually twists when it comes out. So, for instance, if you're standing there, your nipple's not erect, we put the dots on there and you're laying down on the table, we put the clamps on there, the nipple gets erect, everything twists, we pierce, and now it's going to be a crooked piercing. So it needs to be erect when you're actually marked. And that will assure a straight piercing, as long as your piercer hits their dots.
Right. That's the important part of it. Hopefully they're doing their job. Excellent. Brisa says, I may be late to the party, but what's your shop name and what do I have to do to get an appointment to get pierced by you?
My shop name is called Piercing Vegas. We are in Las Vegas. We're about 3 miles off the strip. And to get pierced here, we'll be doing appointments. I'm in the process of doing online appointments here real soon, hopefully the next couple days or so. Just book online and we'll be able to do that. Super, super fun. Let's have proper non-expired ID. A lot of people show up with expired stuff or, stuff that's not really legal for us to take. And that's always a bummer. So if you're not sure, look on the website. We do have a list of acceptable IDs.
All right. Hello from London.
Hi, London.
Eve got her nips pierced 4 days ago and one is bruised and bleeds sometimes. How long should we be expecting this to last for?
Bruised and bleeds, that makes sense. I actually had a client a while ago that came back and her whole breast actually was one big bruise because we hit a small little vein in there and the blood's going to spread. So generally bleeding lasts a couple days, if that. The bruising might last a week to a couple weeks before it completely goes away. It's not the end of the world. Now, in my opinion, when you do a piercing and they bleed or you get a little bit of bruising, you're getting those white blood cells I'm talking about, which heal your piercing faster. So it may look a little rougher in the beginning, but hopefully you'll heal a lot quicker. Awesome. How you doing there, Jared?
Oh, good. My mouse died, so we have just a moment while we're doing some technical difficulty.
I know there's a cable in that bag. I was looking at that earlier. I was like, I was going to pull it out in case the mouse dies. And
no, I got it.
Okay.
Is nostril stretching supposed to kind of hurt?
Very much so.
So that's just gonna hurt. So we're at 2G now, and we've been stretching for a couple of years. The goal is 00. Is it better just to find somewhere to get it punched out, or what do you think?
No, you're there. You're there. What you need to do is you need to find someone who can get you in between sizes. You might want to look at some of the glass stuff. Like I know Gorilla Glass, which is a brand, they make in between sizes. When I was stretching my nostril, I was lucky enough to have a friend who worked at a machine shop who maybe 2 to 3 sizes between each stretch. Yes, it hurts really bad and it sucks for a long time. There's a reason you don't see a lot of people who stretch nostril piercings. Some things stretch easy, like earlobes, if you're patient, but nostrils just don't. They just hurt.
They just hurt. So if you see stretched nostrils, you know that person earned it.
Yeah. I'm hopefully doing a stretching series here soon about all the different types of piercings you can stretch and how they, so stay tuned for that. We'll talk about nostrils. I have a lot to say about that.
All right. He knows a lot about nostrils, this guy. All right.
See what you did there? You knows a lot about nostrils?
Oh, you see the puns. They never stop with me. So we have a question. I had my philtrum pierced 3 weeks ago, and my piercer is about 2 hours away. Can I downsize it safely myself? And if so, when? With love from Norway.
Hi. It can be done safely on your own, but generally you should have some tools because it's not a tricky one to do. And the tools I'm talking about is if you had a taper. Now, a taper is not always easily accessible for everyone to get. Hopefully we can sell some of these online for you. A taper is a metal pin that starts real thin, like a big spear, like so. So it starts real thin, goes up to the same thickness, which is probably a 16, maybe even a 14 gauge. And either it's going to have a pin coming out of the back or you're going to have thread so you can screw your jewelry in. Now, what I'm talking about here is if you were to change out your philtrum, you unscrew the bead in the front, screw the taper in, you'll push it through, unscrew it, put the new one on there, and pull it back in. You're not going to lose your connection in this way, or you can use the threadless version as well. Now, if you're just taking it out and putting the new one in, you might lose it. So
it's rough, but being somewhere where you're 2 hours away, maybe
3 weeks is a little early too. I personally, if you could wait another week or two, it might make a big difference for you.
So wait, especially if you're doing it yourself, the more you wait, the better.
I generally tell people a minimum of a month on a Medusa. Anything that has that outside skin on there for an oral piercing, it does heal a little bit longer than the fully internal oral piercings.
So if we got some snake bites 1 month ago and we have a little bump on there, will putting titanium and jewelry in fix the issue, you think?
It could. It depends why the bump's there. Is your jewelry too long or too tight? Do you have a gem or any sort of burr or thing that's going to scratch or irritate it? Did you catch it on something, which is the reason why the bump's there? There's many reasons. So titanium will probably help, but get rid of the source of the problem and that'll help the most.
All right. Michael says, hey, Scott, you're a badass.
Hi, Michael.
I saw another professional piercer on YouTube mention that 14 karat gold is a better option for tongue piercing because it's a softer metal with less chance of damage. What do you think about that?
I disagree with that. No matter what type of metal you're putting inside your tongue, if you bite down on it, you're going to do damage. Now, 14 karat gold is soft. And if we put a 14 karat gold ball in your tongue, you just touch it against your teeth, you're going to start marring up that gold right away. Okay. Now, and the other thing is gold is softer metal. You need to check your beads on a daily basis. There's a higher chance of stripping out your gold because you're tightening it too much than you would with titanium. A lot of times when you're using a gold barbell, They're using, I believe it's 10 karat gold on the threading as opposed to the 14, because the 14 is just a little bit too soft to hold a full solid thread. So in my opinion, I'm not a fan of golden tongues, just because you spend a lot of money on that gold and it's immediately going to get ruined just by silverware, your teeth, food hitting it. So that's my opinion. If you want it, go for it, but you're spending the money on it too.
Similar to a question we answered earlier, but slightly different. Deshaun just got a little braid piercing about 4 days ago, and there's been some tissue coming up and over the little circle inside my lip. Is that normal? Is it something they should be concerned about?
It's not concerning unless it's completely engulfing and you have to pop it out of there. A little bit of a pocket pulls it away from your teeth and gums. That's normal. Someone earlier was talking about how the flap of skin was getting really, really sore. And if your jewelry's causing problems and soreness, that's why that bump's there. Find a different piece of jewelry. But for it to create a little pocket, that's a little bit normal.
All right. A little bit of
protect your teeth and protect your gums.
Okay.
Man, I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I love Dutch Brothers coffee.
Shout out to
Dutch Brothers.
This guy's trying to get a sponsorship.
I just love them. I don't need a sponsorship. I just love their coffee. They're great.
Hi, Scott. I'm a piercer of 1.5 years, and I absolutely love what I do, but I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and I get really disheartened and beat myself up when the placement doesn't turn out exactly right, how I want it. 99% of the time, nobody notices, but I'm not sure if I'm just being overly critical. Do you have any tips or tricks about how to do marking and try to get closer to 100% accuracy?
It just takes time. And I think a lot of us piercers, because I'm in that same category, if it's not perfect, it kills me inside, because I want to give the best, most perfect thing. Now, here's the thing. Everyone's body's not symmetrical. It's not perfect. And we as piercers are human. There is no such thing as perfect. If your customer's happy, when they look in the mirror and you see that huge grin, that's what it's all about. If your angle's off 1%, they're not going to know, because our bodies aren't symmetrical enough for that. If they're happy, that's the ultimate goal. You know, if your piercing's crooked enough where people are going to be saying something, yeah, say something to them and say, hey, we need to re-pierce this. But as far as like marking more perfectly, all we can do is do our best. And if the customer looks in the mirror and they see that dot and say it's perfect, that's what perfect is. It's the customer's piercing. It's not ours. So.
That's excellent. Sometimes you being a perfectionist gets in the way.
It does. And so many of us are, and we battle with this all the time, but we have to let go and give the customer what they want. It's customer service, and it's really, really tough sometimes, because, I've done that dot on the nostril and like, I love it there. And they look in the mirror like, oh no, it needs to go way back. Go back a couple dots. And it's just like, no, but you know what? They're wearing it. If that's where they really want it and it's not going to cause a problem, I'll let them have it.
Right.
I've marked double nostrils before, and I think it looks perfect. It's symmetrical. It's spot on. And they're like, no, that one needs to go way back. I'm like, I think it's back further, but as long as you're okay with it. They're like, nope, that's where I want it. That's where it goes.
Let them be happy.
That's where it goes. It's tough. We all battle. You're not alone.
Xana the Wicked has an interesting question. First of all, greetings from Poland.
Hi, Poland.
So we want to get a lot of cartilage piercing. I'm going to just paraphrase the question up. We want to fill our whole ear all the way down the helix with cartilage piercings. And once they're healed up, put rings in. What is the minimum safe distance if we're trying to really max out as many rings as we can get up our helix? What's the minimum safe distance between them?
Okay. I've never really broken it down to millimeters like this before. You can get pretty close. Generally, most studs are going to have like a 3 to 5 millimeter disc in the back. Okay, so if you're using like a 3 millimeter disc in the back, you probably have a minimum of
3, because it'd be 1.5 on each side.
Yeah.
Right? So because you don't want those discs overlapping and hitting each other.
So a minimum of 3 millimeters, just so that they touch each other. I would say you want a hair more, so 3.5 to 4 millimeters between each gap. Now, another thing to keep in mind is when you're piercing the ear, if you pierce one here and one here and one here, you have 3 that are all swelling, putting pressure on each other. What I would suggest doing is map out your whole ear, mark all the dots you want, and maybe do it in 3 sessions where you do every third. So heal them all up and then come in and go in between again. And that might make an easier healing process, because I'm saying this because the triple forward helix, when we do 3 up here, the 3 really exponentially makes it a rougher healing because each swelling puts pressure on the other one. So if you make each piercing a little easier to heal by spreading them out, that might heal it up a little better for you. But to answer your question, minimum 3.5 millimeters.
Now I'm
4.
Just to throw a little monkey wrench in there.
Yes.
Now, if we were going to stick with studs, that would be our minimum. But if Xana's eventual goal is rings, we don't really have to worry about that 3 millimeter flat on the back. The rings could sit closer than that to each other, couldn't they?
They could if you were healing with rings, but you're healing with stuff. Oh, boy.
So what if you healed every
other,
like did what you were talking about, where we did it in 3 sets with leaving gaps and then switched to the rings? I mean, it's a process, but it's a process. Possible.
Yeah. You can get really, really close without causing problems, but you have to have a really accurate piercer to make sure everything's absolutely perfect.
Right. Because that's the thing, is the closer you get, the more your eye will see if one of them's wrong too, right?
I'm really curious, what's the most amount of cartilage piercings anyone's ever had? Helix.
I bet Guinness knows. That seems like the kind of thing.
I'd be kind of curious to find that out, see if anyone's had over 100 helix piercings.
Okay, Matt's got a question. Piercer botched his PA and he had to remove it. The hole closed, thankfully, but I can still feel the scar underneath.
Yep.
How long should I allow the area to heal before exploring surgical repair?
Surgical repair. Talk to your surgeon. If they botched it up that bad, that's gonna, yeah. But you might want to look into some of the scar tissue removers like Mederma, Scargo. Sometimes that can really heal things up enough to get rid of almost all discoloration and problems as far as that goes. But talk to the surgeon and see what they say. Botched up PA where you have to, I'm sorry, dude.
So another question. We have a 7-month-old helix, and it's healed to the point where we can sleep comfortably on that side. Does that mean it's okay to swap out for the hoop? Is that an indicator of healedness?
Probably. Yeah, you could totally be healed in that window. So change out to the hoop, but listen to your body. If you are a week into it and you have bumps forming and it's staying really, really sore, maybe go back to the stud until it is ready. Just listen to your body, but you should be fine if you're sleeping on it by now.
Amanda had a nostril piercing years ago, and it's she can tell that there's scar tissue on the inside. Can she still get that same side re-pierced, or would it be smarter to switch sides?
No, we can get the same side pierced. The scar tissue is going to be there from old piercings. Sometimes there's a lot, sometimes there's just a little tiny bit, but it's still there. So yeah, you can totally get it re-pierced as long as it's not bulbing out and like a large piece of scar tissue. If that's the case, scar tissue remover and massage it to get rid of it. But yeah, go right through it. No problem.
Excellent. And what is your opinion of bioplastic posts for labret or philtrum piercings?
Not a fan. I've seen a lot of people come in. The bioplast is basically a threadless labret where there's a little plastic piece which goes in the front, but because it's plastic, it kind of flares out a little bit, and a lot of times it kind of trumpets the end. So I've seen a lot of irritation taking these in and out. I'm just not a fan of plastic. Bioplast could work just fine for a temporary for like a medical procedure, but when people use these for long-term for like work and school, it's just not a good idea. You got to find the right time when you can actually wear the piercing.
Alexander sends greetings from Russia.
Hi, Alexander from Russia.
And sweet. Alexander got his eyebrow pierced about a year ago. The thing that bothers him is that the crusties still appear. Is that okay after a year?
Yeah, I still get mine. Mine gets irritated, little crusties here and there. As time goes on, it's going to get less and less and less. So it does happen. If you have a lot of crusties, you might want to question what jewelry you're wearing or what you're doing to irritate it. But a little tiny bit of crusties on there, that's normal.
So excessive crusties could be a result of bad metal and jewelry, for example. That could be how your body's complaining.
Your body reacting to it and trying to get fluids to kind of protect it against it or some sort of thing.
So that's something, maybe trying some titanium jewelry or something might help.
But I mean, you healed a tube of scar tissue. So shampoos, soaps, oil from your body, dead skin cells, they're constantly, it has to come out. So that's what it's doing. It's coming out and it's drying on your jewelry. So it's not that big of a...
Just kind of normal maintenance.
A little
bit.
Every piercing's going to have minor crusties on there. So, yeah.
So Eva would like to get their tongue pierced next week. However, they've heard that they're not supposed to eat dairy. They're very confused. Is there truth to this that you know of?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Now, the reason we're saying this is you don't want to create any sort of dairy or yeast. They say stay away from yeast is what it is, because yeast causes the thrush, which is the white film on your tongue, which is basically bacteria. So you don't want to form that, but we can brush our tongue.
Right.
Okay. Now, if you say no yeast, do they also say no breads?
Right.
No,
no beer.
Yeah. Well, they say no beer. That's another thing where it comes from, is because the alcohol numbs the mouth for oral piercings, and you can rip and tear your piercing. But regular alcohol is going to numb your mouth the same way. So I say make sure you're eating so you can heal your piercing properly. It's not that big of a deal. Just clean your piercing after your meal.
Gino from Finland wants to know if your nostrils were punched or stretched.
I have a story. If you go onto this page here and you look under story time, you'll see a thing on how my nostril was done. It's a crazy story, but they were pierced with needles. One was pierced at an 8 gauge, and then about a year later, it's when I had my other nostril pierced, and this one was already stretched to a 6 gauge at that time, so I had the second one pierced at a 6 gauge. Needles, no tissue removed, and it hurt. One of the worst things I've ever done to myself. Most painful, not worst things. Most painful things.
And by done to yourself, it was done by another piercer, correct?
Oh, yeah.
So, just to clarify for anyone that might get confused and think you're piercing yourself,
People
you don't
think
do
I'm
it.
the toughest guy in the world if I did a 6 gauge nostril on myself.
Well, speaking of how tough you are, how painful was your head tattoo and how long did it take?
I have about 24 hours into my head right now, and I'm hopefully going to be adding more soon. My friend just moved back, and he's back in the country, and we're going to start blasting away. I have, like I said, 24 hours. It was probably one of the easiest tattoos I've ever had, but I did have yellows and greens and blues in there. It was really colorful, but...
By easiest, you mean least painful?
Yeah.
That's not what people would expect, I would think.
Well, a lot of the TV shows, the reality shows of the tattoos, there's people who called ambulance on them and whatnot. And I don't know if that was to create drama, but I have in my arms, my chest, my neck, my back, my legs. This was my easiest of all my tattoos. My arm, everyone's like, oh, this got to be the... No. This was the easiest.
That actually hurt less than your
bicep. It literally felt like someone with nails just kind of doing a light massage. I'm laying there, just a big smile on my face, getting my head tattooed. And I sat for 6 hours, no problem. Normally I can sit 3 to 4 hours max on any tattoo.
So it must have been easier than normal.
It was a piece of cake. Yeah.
Interesting.
Yep.
So speaking of things that don't hurt as much as we'd expect, Annie got her nipples pierced on the 12th of the month. Hurt for about 3 hours, but then since then, no pain whatsoever. Is that normal? We're feeling lucky.
Congratulations, and that is awesome. Yes. Generally, when we do a piercing, we're making the crescent incision, pushing tissue off to the side. After the swelling's gone down, everything relaxes, pain should go away. Now, the only other pain I want to warn you about, because it's not that far into it, is catching that rag or loof on it.
So it's going to happen. Be
It's
careful.
inevitable. Eventually you'll catch something, and that hurts. But if you're careful, you'll be good. Congratulations.
Kiara wants to know how a helix piercing should be pierced. Hers is pierced at an angle, and it looks like that could be the reason that there is irritation bumps. Does the angle of a piercing affect whether it bumps or not?
100%. I get to draw again. Okay. Yes, angle is everything to do with the bump. So now, if, say for instance, your ear was perfectly straight, just like this, and this is how thick your piercing is. If we go straight across like so, we have a 90-degree angle here, and these are nice, even things to heal up. So you have like a little bread in there. Now, if I were to go at an angle like so draw this and erase the right lines. Now, this part here is real sharp, and this is way more open, so we're more prone to getting bumps in these areas here. So, for sure, as perpendicular as possible, it's the least amount of tissue to heal, and it's going to heal much, much nicer. Plus, if you have a labret in there and it's sitting at an angle, you have this point in here also digging in your ear. It's not sitting flat and flush, which could be causing irritation as well. So, yeah, for sure, you definitely want to go perpendicular. If it's at a hard angle, that could be a reason for the bumps. Now, sometimes when we do these piercings, when we do these piercings, they can be straight and we put the longer bar in for swelling like I was showing you there. But if you don't downsize over time, the piercings can migrate and adjust that way too. So sometimes if it's just a little bit of an angle, downsizing to that shorter post might kind of re-straight it out a little bit too. So talk to your piercer, see if it's something that needs to be done, taken out, starting over, but it's not worth healing up if it's not going to work.
So I know you've said no plastic jewelry, but Amber wants this glow-in-the-dark jewelry pretty bad. Is that just a no for glow-in-the-dark plastic jewelry? It's probably more chemicals than regular plastic jewelry.
I don't know any real reputable jewelry companies who are actually making glow-in-the-dark jewelry. It's going to be externally threaded. I don't trust it. I've never carried it in my shop. I just don't trust it. I don't know. I don't have a true answer about the glow-in-the-dark aspect of it, but I've never seen it on quality jewelry either.
All right, we're going to try to wind up and do just a few more questions here. Chloe is about to have their labret pierced in the center and wants to know, is there any ways to minimize tooth damage on that?
Yes. Downsize your jewelry when you can. Generally a minimum of like 4 weeks. Once the swelling's gone down and it's healed up enough, the shorter post will pull that disc away from your teeth and there's less chance of you doing damage. Now also in the next week when you have it, that's the most likely time you are to bite down on it because the swelling is going to fluctuate throughout the week. So eat slower, give yourself extra time. Even after a couple days into having your piercing, you're like, oh, I'm used to it. It's not a big deal. Chomp, damage is done. So
Chomp.
That's the way it goes. It's just like, you're just like, oh, there's such good food. When I really get into my food is when I do damage to that's why I don't have my oral piercings anymore.
You
I
just
like eating.
Not worth it.
Yeah.
So Bo is getting a septum soon. During the healing, is it better for it to be dry or moist?
You don't really have much of a choice on a septum because it is a mucous membrane and it is going to stay lubricated. So the big thing is clean it. Don't let those crusties build up too much and don't move it around. But yeah, it's like you're going to spray with the wound wash spray and then you wipe off crusties. You're not going to be able to keep it dry throughout the day. Just try to leave it be and keep it in the same position.
Can you talk more about your more cake hand tattoos? Is there a backstory? Do you just love cake? Are we talking cake as a euphemism for butts? Where are we here, Scott?
There's also a band name Cake that I found out. So there's so many things. And yes, I have a little story for you. Did I ever do story time on this one?
You may have, but we can tell them anyway.
Okay. So more cake. I was at an APP convention, the Association of Professional Piercers. My friend Fish was eating with me at the table. It was the big banquet dinner. And being the little glutton I am, I was like, well, I think I'm going to go up and get some more cake. And I feel this hand on my shoulder from Fish. And he's like, dude, more cake. You got to get that tattooed on your knuckles. I looked down. I was like, giggled about it and moved on. Now, as time went on, everything I do is in excess. Everything I can into the YouTube channel. I get a lot of tattoos, a lot of piercings. It's balls to the wall. That's just the way I work. So more cake made sense. It's not about more food. It's more everything. That's just the way I am. And it's all the way. And that's the way I work. So that being said, we're going to wrap this up here. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for tuning in. And also, again, we're trying to get to 50,000 subscribers, so make sure you're subscribed, hit the like, tell your friends about us, and next week we'll see you here at the same time. Again, keep what knows your body. See you on the next video.